I've known it since the very beginning. Everything that was happening was my fault. I'm the lowest of the low. Damn, I look so lame. I don't have time to spend whining like this. You idiot. I've heard this laughter before. The voice of a man I hated to death. No, it's me. I'm laughing at myself.
Re:Zero was initially a series I watched years ago, only to not think much of it. With the rise of isekai at the time, I thought it was just some cliche cash-in made by a big-name studio. But clearly, since I'm making a video about it, I couldn't have been more wrong. Watching the series in 2024 made me really understand something. That the medium of fiction can change how we think as we grow mature enough to understand it. It's possible to come to terms with specific values that would normally be pushed away by means of only watching a series once. I found myself ending off each episode staring at a bleak ceiling and forcing myself to come to terms with who I was and how everything affected me, something that my younger self would never understand. I know it seems absurd for a series to do, but these were episodes that I already had seen before, but this time I watched them with an analytical, open mind. There are a few anime that open a blueprint to show us how we can transform our lives and become better people. A lot of modern day fiction encodes these themes under the surface, having us look deeper in order to find something profound or grim to reflect upon, but the average person can never really find and appreciate these sentiments. A lot of the time when we consume a piece of media, we use it as a means to relax and wind down, maybe to enjoy a well-written story or watch content that's just engaging. An experience that's far more exciting than our day-to-day lives. It's typically human nature to feel uncomfortable when we hear a harsh truth about who we are, and it's genuinely terrifying when one of our main flaws are directly spelled out for us, especially when we want to get away from reality. This is something that I have accepted about the things that I talk about, and often a sad consideration of the world today. We watch things to escape, never breaking a cycle that can harm you. I bring this up as an idea that this is the core concept of Re:Zero, as it throws you into a fantasy world that isn't far different from our own. Tappei sets up a world where you can quite literally do anything with his characters without it feeling like a plot device. The main cast seems like they have real feelings, connections, interactions, and genuinely act human. And in this world, anything can happen to every character at any point in time. It flips the dynamic that most anime have, where people stop asking how the main characters are going to come out alive and changes it to which side of the fight will win. Lugunica sets up no plot armor for anyone or anything, and this only adds to the parallels and metaphors that compared to our world. People are blessed with divine protection, spirits, magic, and this is depicted as one's strength. No one really fucks with you if you show weakness, and you're cast aside even if you show a little bit of incompetence. And finally, if your social or negotiation skills suck, then you might as well just give up on trying to accomplish anything without power. This is the dynamic that helped me fall in love with Re:Zero. The attention to detail and the nurture and care that goes into it makes it seem like a mirror staring into our own world, never knowing when your incompetence will get the better of you, well, at least if you're powerless. You see, in life and Re:Zero, you're dealt a hand of cards and it's up to you to play your hand effectively. And those who have been blessed with magical powers and OP abilities are simply a result of getting a better hand than you, which stays true for society as well. Some people are born in a shit country, just barely scraping by on what little they have, and then there are people who are born into wealth who can play Fortnite all day and not worry about a single thing. It seems unfair, but that's just how our worlds are. Life is shit one moment, and then the next day your circumstances can be looking better just for it to go back to being shit again. It can get to the point where things are just above the threshold of being passable that you never actually do anything about your life and your current character. You remain a simple cog in the machine of life. What's the point of changing if there's no reason to keep going? People can get away with pride, sloth, and arrogance if they have the power to back it up, and if you don't, then you're a failure shunned by society. This is where the excellent world building fits into Subaru's life perfectly as he's transported to Lugunica. Being in a new world doesn't impact his life at all, and that's what felt really cool to me. It doesn't just pull a 180 to change the main character's life and become a badass who can do anything, but rather cuts him down to his core and never allows him to run from his worst. He's forced to carry this burden for as long as he faces away from it, experiencing the lonely terror that comes with it. Part of this was just the way that the show was written, and shows us that the world won't wait for our mistakes. There are repercussions for them. But its world is much more than just this. It knows who's watching and sees right through who's going to continue to watch. As I was rewatching the series, I couldn't help but feel that the series knew me far better than I knew myself. The show knows that humans are fake. We walk with our masks up, never showing people the things that make us weak and vulnerable, only to show it to people and for them to think less of you. we realize that no one can help us but our own selves. I'm sure Natsuki Subaru can relate to these sentiments. He's a character who is charismatic and has ambition. He sets his sights on becoming something truly important in the new world he finds himself in. Or that's what it seems. Before he's even transported to Lagunica, he's tired of something. That expression stops for a time being as he's introduced to the capital, a place where he can start anew. He's a kid who desperately craves something better and unrealistic for his own life, showing his ambitious otaku nature. When he ventures off, he explores the back alleys, testing to see if he has super strength. The second he finds himself in a situation less than ideal, he thinks the world is setting him up to use magic, which simply ends up not happening. Subaru finds himself disappointed and realizes that the world doesn't exist to revolve around him. And this is the beginning of the cracks in his character. Subaru Natsuki is dealt a unique hand of cards in which he can use Return by Death, a power that allows him to go back in time and repeat a specific sequence of events at the cost of his own pain and suffering. While other characters can offer up a wide variety of different traits and treasure, Natsuki Subaru can only provide his life. Despite being disappointed with his first impressions of Lagunica, it's his love for the main heroine, Amelia, that allows him to push past his initial few deaths, but he still faces that death alone. And it's this loneliness that eats away at his character when he arrives at Roswell's mansion. Subaru's character is unique and relatable in the sense that he wears a mask whenever he's in the presence of other people. He runs around like a complete dumbass in the first 3 episodes, being loud and charismatic like any anime MC, a persona he creates for himself to make him seem more special than he actually is. When he's at the mansion, he does his best to impress the maid sisters Ram and Rem and the eccentric owner Roswell, all the while trying to prevent a threat that will kill everyone. He dies just to save these people who he genuinely cares about, yet these people don't care about him in the same way that he does. They're wary of the foul witch's scent that looms over him, and his actions at the mansion are a little bit questionable. He knows things about other people and events that he shouldn't know about, which only makes him more suspicious because he's already suspected to be a spy. After experiencing all this, he shakes it off and smiles, trying to make it through the day with his mask that he created, before vomiting in the sink in depression when he finally gets away from it all. It's at this point we get to see what defines him. This is the first time that Subaru Natsuki has put this much effort into something in his life. He isn't used to the burden of being someone who's dependable. Return by Death is both a blessing and a curse, and really magnifies some of his defining traits. As any normal person would just move on and run away from the ugliness of death, Subaru begins to fight it. He thinks he's some special case who can make anything happen without making sacrifices besides his own life. But at the end of the day, he's just human. He pushes away the people around him and has to do it alone because no one else can. Subaru distracts himself by trying to laugh it off and make others laugh too, but reality overwhelms him. He's still in a world where no one knows or even trusts him. We're given situations where Subaru goes on with the burdens of his death, taking in the pain over and over again without acknowledgement or leisure. His fucking limbs are cut off by the people who he genuinely thought were his friends. He gets decapitated by a giant chain ball because of the witch's scent. Or what about the time where he has to jump off a cliff and get impaled by spikes for quite literally doing nothing? Subaru's forced to face a reality where the world tells him, this is life, suck it up, no one cares. And then we get to see what happens to him when someone does care. He looks up from the lap of the girl he loves and finds the strength to get up. This brings us to one of ReZero's most iconic themes, that love is an essential part of motivation. And it's through his love for Amelia that he has the resolve to keep going. And this isn't just some cliche of the typical MC saying, I'll never give up, and saves the day in the end. As much as that's what Subaru wants, he realizes that he can't win with just his efforts alone. His cards need to be played correctly. The show pulls you in and wraps you up in something far more genuine than what we've seen from the beginning. Suddenly life feels like there's hope, knowing there's someone who cares. The isolation goes away for a moment, boosting your confidence, and the threat of death becomes a challenge, thinking you can take on the entire world itself. Subaru's character starts getting more and more layers to him, and he doesn't just sound like a typical anime dumbass. In Subaru's last run of the mansion, I found myself getting more and more immersed in the conflict, even with no overarching antagonist going on. My eyes were lost in the show, and I wanted the fantasy world of Lagunica to be real. I wanted Subaru to go on that date he promised with Amelia. I wanted Subaru to save everyone, Ram, Rem, Amelia, Beatrice, and Roswell. I wanted him to prove that life is so much more than your own self-flaws and isolation. And that's exactly what he does. The people in the mansion are saved, he becomes the hero of the village, and everyone lives due to Subaru's diligence and heroism, 2 traits he never knew he had within him. He goes to the maid sister's enemy, to co-worker, and now one of their friends. Subaru solves Rem's internal conflict, an event that's a catalyst for her love. Yes, Subaru Natsuki is powerless, but I wanted to see him grow and develop into someone more dependable in a world where that shouldn't happen. I wanted to see what Subaru could do next, and what he would do next. After quite literally solving an impossible situation, Subaru ends up heading back to the capital with Amelia for her to compete in the royal selection and to meet up with the rest of the cast. You got the benevolent Reinhardt, who's literally playing this story in creative mode. The strong and independent Krush, who's passionate for her dream. You got Julius, who will fuck all your shit up if you disrespect him. And the entrepreneur Anastasia, the girl who treats everything like a business venture. I wanted to see how Subaru would impress these characters. What would he do to gain the respect of these people? How would he prove...
You just happen to be born into the job. It's the luck of the draw. Don't use your daddy's name to act like a big shot.
Then, everything hits. Just as our protagonist feels like he develops instantly, we forget that Natsuki Subaru is human. It started to feel like the world was setting him up for greatness, the thing he aspired for and the hero he craved, all for that just to crumble. We thought that we would see Subaru continue to win, but the main character reminds us the incompetence we wanted to escape from in the first place. The version that exists of ourselves isn't the same as everyone else's. We can't outrun our own reflections. That mask that Natsuki Subaru wears falls in front of everyone, showing his true colors. We get to see the importance of Subaru's mask. We see that he cares way too much about how he's perceived, and that ugliness that lies within him stares right through the cracks of his character when he's overwhelmed. Something breaks between Subaru and Amelia as Subaru reveals who he is at his core, insecure and arrogant. He shows Amelia a part of him that hasn't been seen by others yet, and is rejected because she doesn't like what she sees in him. This is where loneliness and isolation plays a big role in ReZero. As Subaru is left in the world without the person that was keeping him alive in the first place, he's forced to carry on living, now with a lack of direction, taking us to one of the most beautiful sequences I've ever seen in fiction. Escaping yourself isn't possible. All we can do is follow in the footsteps of a man we want to be. This is something that Subaru must come to terms with, to let his old self die off so he can be worthy of the love he demanded in the first place. He has a talk with each and every character he's met thus far, and each time they see right through his mask, all the excuses he's making for himself and the depths of his self-consciousness. He rushes back to the mansion and hopes to be by Amelia's side, only to find everyone dead once again, and his body is added to that death toll. This crushes whatever pride Subaru had left. He falls to the ground, trying to reassure himself that it's not his fault. In a state of shock, on the verge of giving up, and his mind falling off the deep end, Subaru wakes up once again and rushes back to the mansion, meeting a fate worse than before. Teppei reaches a point where he defines one of Subaru's main flaws, his lack of urgency. Subaru, in the heat of the episode, meets a character that's an amplified version of himself, Betelgeuse Ramanan Kanti, Archduke Bishop of Sloth, and Subaru does everything he can to look the other way from him. Subaru pretends like he's fucking insane because he doesn't want to deal with the problem head on. He avoids accountability, literally doing nothing as everything is being stripped away from him right in front of him. Everything that he's done after being at the capital leads to one thing: Subaru running away from his shortcomings. The introduction of Betelgeuse is exactly him facing these shortcomings head on, an ordeal that is extremely agonizing for him. He engrosses himself in Betelgeuse's twisted ideology of the witch cultists, an obsession over the witch Satella, which is comparative to Subaru's obsession with Amelia. Betelgeuse looks Subaru deep in the eyes, a direct mirror to his own soul, bound to the claims that keep him locked up in the cave. Betelgeuse blabbering thought-provoking nonsense at Subaru, and the girl that loves him comes to save him. Everything is an anomaly at this point, and nothing makes sense. I just want to see how they would get out of this situation. I wanted Rem to save the day, and the hero and heroine to meet up once again. Even though I wanted to look away from Subaru's character, I wanted to look away from the screen, I just couldn't. It was so good and well written that I was waiting to see what would happen next. There's a glint of hope in Subaru's eyes as he sees Rem for who she is and how much she cares about him. I couldn't wait to see how Subaru and Rem would win, and... a moment that's ripped away in the most brutal and gruesome fashion. Betelgeuse assures Subaru that everything that's happened, all the death, the pain, the suffering, is all his fault. The art of doing nothing granted Subaru this outcome. Nothing will save them. During these moments, Subaru feigns madness, hoping to feel some empathy for his current situation. He wishes that he would break, just so he can give up, to give in to his own sloth, and all the excuses that come with it. All these events culminate into Subaru just walking aimlessly around the snow-filled mansion in a never-ending blizzard. With the altruistic Rem in his hands, his legs push forward with no meaning, leaving nothing left in this loop but only his hatred for Betelgeuse, as well as himself. His life had no meaning or direction. As an element of the story, Subaru's actions make sense to the viewer. Although it's hard to watch at times, it still feels real. The emotional impact of episode 15 hits because it can be something that everyone can relate to. The series is completely different from what we've seen in the first 12 episodes. It reels you into a type of character development that most series like to stay away from. No one wants to believe that they're wrong. Most of the time we like to go on living thinking that every choice we make is right, that we are the ideal character of the world. But deep down, we know we aren't special. When no one's around, there are times where I just want to fall over and just cry. To the other people in my life, it seems like I have everything figured out, but the truth is that I myself still feel like I walk aimlessly, never knowing what I truly want or like. People can't find happiness when they find themselves in the same loop of misery every day. Those who want to live freely do so at the cost of loneliness and hard work. It makes us contemplate. Our happiness is what we make of it. You can start your day working in a cubicle for 8 hours and hate every aspect of your life, or you can find happiness in having something to look forward to every day. It feels as if this is normalized in society nowadays. The stress of work combined with the idea that you're just some cog in a society can break you down. Despite being mind-pucked for the 30th time, the ending of this episode serves another purpose. It reminds us of what we forgot. Life is shit, but we keep moving forward anyways. And throughout the next 3 episodes, Subaru grapples with this idea. Subaru freezes to death with his head falling off. The white whale is fucking terrifying, and the main cast of the story is reduced to blood on the pavement over and over again by things or characters that seem like they have no value to the story. These experiences wear away at Subaru and break him down to his core, making him realize that the man he hates is himself, and the only thing that's left to do is to change his own core. Rem's words to Subaru are exactly what makes him bring out the dormant thoughts in his head, the things that he wishes he could talk about but feared for being judged. The words "run away with me, Rem" acts as a ploy for the ultimate abandonment of his problems. Subaru ran. He never stopped to think how he can truly be beneficial to someone else's life. He never stopped to think how he could be deserving of the things he demanded. He kept moving forward with arrogance, thinking that the world would change for him, never stopping to ponder why he didn't get the things he expected. In those early episodes, he started to believe that he was a special case in a special world as the hero, for all of that to come crashing down in a reality that was worse than before he got there. He decides to run away from Amelia, the heroine he truly loved. He ran from the mansion with all the fond memories with the sisters, and he ran from the Arlen villagers, the ones he desperately wanted to save and have a connection with. All of these events leading up to this moment. Now we get into the heart of ReZero. Get invested for a moment, drown everything else out. This was the scene we were all waiting for, with 2 people talking about the real shit in life. Our main character has finally given up with no resolve on what to do, and a confession that any normal person would have taken. I didn't care that my main character had done wrong, and I didn't care that you'd be leaving behind the characters I'd come to love. Who really cares? I wanted the nihilistic Subaru to run away with the empathetic Rem. I wanted to see them have a future that so many people have already experienced. And yet, Rem denies the future she sees with him, knowing that the Subaru she loves most would die off if he ran away. Despite everything that Subaru has experienced, she says that it's easy to take the path that he's going down. Subaru snaps back at her, saying that you don't know shit about me and how much she's agonized over the future. Yes, Subaru may be in the wrong, but they're both being open and honest about it, with both parties being mature about the problem. Rem tells him how much of a dependable person he is to her, and Subaru lists all the horrible things he can find about himself. The sloth, the greed, the pride. I remember sitting in my room with the lights off, with a hole in my chest from watching it. Chills down my spine from an entire episode of just characters talking. And then Subaru said something that broke me. I hate myself. In that moment, I felt worthless. Subaru's speech is one of the most impactful dialogues in fiction. I can talk about it for hours on why this is one of the greatest episodes in history, but it primarily boiled down to one thing. It hit me in the gut while watching. For me, I've always been afraid of becoming unreliable. I'm not really someone to reevaluate who I am. I typically like to tell myself the right things so I don't have to change or worry about fixing myself. Just like Subaru, I actively know about my flaws and never did anything about them, leaving myself lying on my bed on those hopeless nights, never being able to fall asleep because of the man I've become, or the man I've been turning out to be. Those times that I've spent sleepless, agonizing over the future that's not even guaranteed. I've never truly loved myself. There are times that I like to think to myself that I'm being proactive and tell the people around me what I'm doing just to lead to more broken promises. I wanted to go on thinking that the version of myself that I wanted to catch up with and the goals that I set up would all be accomplished on their own. But deep down, I knew that would never happen. It's clear once you have the same mindset as Subaru, it's hard to get out of it. It's impossible to begin to enjoy life as you once did when you were a child and had nothing to worry about. As we mature, we lose our sense of self, as well as the things we've wanted to become. Maybe we don't like to talk about these things, and that's fine. But it's a reality that many people go through. But even on a basic level for Subaru, his mindset here is realistic and something anyone can relate to. We all have things that we can't stand about ourselves, and as we get older, those things begin to amplify. As Subaru brings the despair of life into the conversation, Rem shows us the beauty. There are things that exist that give us enough hope to keep going, to keep us in check, to allow us to trudge through an 8-hour workday and still smile. Things that make us want to be better. Maybe it's your crush you see every day at school, a significant other that you care about, your mother or father, or maybe it's just that friend that's always there for you. For Subaru, this is the people he's met so far. He puts up with so much bullshit just to see Emilia smile, to keep people safe, to long for that happy ending. He began to lose track of this as his flaws and self-hatred took over. And this leads us to ReZero's main message. You can't begin to love without loving yourself first. Nothing begins to put value on this message more than Rem's words to Subaru as the episode wraps up. She comforts him, feeds his illusion for a fleeting moment, fully aware that he's lost, that their old memories are behind them. Subaru rambles on about his self-loathing, while Rem counters with an equal number of reasons why he's amazing. It's a reminder that others see us differently than we see ourselves. There's nothing that Rem can do to change Subaru. There never was. Once someone chooses to turn away from the reflection, you start running, never looking back, and eventually you realize you might have been running for nothing. Subaru decides to change from this day forward, from zero. So where do we go from here? Well, from this point forward, the story sets up Subaru for the most satisfying conclusion. After coming out of some of the most fucked up experiences I've seen in an anime, Subaru finally puts in the work to see Emilia while simultaneously gaining insane feats. Subaru's conflict itself is so simple yet complex. The first season of ReZero creates a perfect foundation to create one of the most well-written characters. And there's a lot more to talk about too. Subaru's general depression, his inferiority complex due to his father, the suffering for the sake of someone else, all of which I want to talk about in a future video. But it's clear that Subaru finds some form of happiness in this season, and that's winning the respect of Emilia. I feel as if I connect with ReZero's world more than I connect with other series. I find a lot of value in myself when I'm dependable for other people. And yet, I still have this problem where I know exactly what to do to achieve my goals, and I just simply won't do it. It's a problem that's been recently healing ever since I've rewatched the series. There are takeaways from ReZero that I believe that can help us enjoy life a bit more. The most important being that we can start ourselves from square one despite the person we were before. Fuck the unhappy loops, fuck the bad mindset, create yourself in a light that you can be proud of. Subaru takes Rem's advice to heart and does exactly this. Subaru becomes the main character version of himself that he's always wanted to be, and it feels genuine. Something that felt really cool to me is that Subaru realizes that he was wrong and goes to apologize, something that most writers would never take the time to do. And through all of this, he's able to save everyone once again, concluding this ride of a season. There's so much substance to ReZero, and I want to talk about more of its themes, specifically Season 2 in another video, some of it being direct and other times not so much. Besides all the yap I just mentioned, ReZero is an amazing series that I recommend everyone check out as there's so much more to what I just talked about. Stuff that makes you realize that while you might hate yourself, there are still people who do care about you. And to our flaws that we might never be able to escape from, instead of turning away from them, we have to accept them, and only then we can start healing ourselves from zero.